And what it is, it's after Jesus' last day. This is the last week of Jesus' earthly ministry. Probably on a Wednesday night, he was preaching in the temple, and had a big blow up with them, gets run out of the temple, and then has this encounter with his disciples on the Mount of Olives. And they talk a lot about the end of the world and what's going to happen. And Jesus basically gives them three parables. And really the three parables track with three things Jesus is trying to make them understand. That why they wait on the return of the king, because the king's going to leave, and they have to wait for him to return. They need to be doing three things. The first thing is they need to be ready. They need to be ready for the king. Second thing, they need to be watching for the king. They need to understand the times. And the last one is this parable of talents. And it says they need to be working while they're waiting for the return of the king. And so I think, you can look at the other two, but the most important one is this last one, because it's about these three men that are working for a master. The master goes off on a journey, and each one of the men are giving a certain amount of money. One's given 1 talent, one's given 2 talents, one's given 5 talents. Now, the fascinating thing about this is I got wondering one day, what's a talent worth? Because I always felt like the guy got one crummy talent. He really got kind of cheated, right? I mean, what can you do with one crummy little talent, right? 1 talent in today's dollars is worth somewhere between $1 million and $2 million. So the guy that got 1 talent took $1 million at least and buried it in his backyard. No wonder the master was furious with him, right? It should have been. It's just a fascinating story, because what we hear when we hear people preach on this is usually they talk about that guy. The only thing you need to know about the guy that buried his talent is you don't want to be that guy. You want to be one of the other 2 guys, right? And I think the really interesting part of that parable, the one that really points to this idea of success, is found in a short passage that, as we're reading it, we almost gloss over. And it says he gave 1, 2, and 1, 5, each according to his own ability. Now, you couldn't do that today, right? Today, you'd have to give each one, I'm not a math guy, so what? 3.5, whatever it boils down to when you divide them all up. You have to give everybody the same amount, or people would just say, it's not fair. But that's not what the master did, because he understood the abilities of the different servants. And so he gave them different amounts based on each ability. Now, here's the fascinating thing. The first guy comes back, gives the master back the whole 5 talents. What does the master say? What's his reward? Well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of the master. The second guy comes back, takes his two talents, makes 2 more talents, gives them to the master. What's his reward? It's the same as the first guy. Wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? Shouldn't it be greater or less? I mean, in today's society, what would we do? The guy that did the 5 and made 5 more, I mean, we're talking, he took $5 million, maybe $10 million, went out in the marketplace, made 10 more million. Even in their day, that's pretty impressive. I mean, he was like a Bill Gates or Jobs, or from Apple. I mean, this guy was a superstar. So who do we hold up on a pedestal? That guy. He'd be doing the late night talk shows on TV. He's the guy that's going to be the superstar. But in God's economy, it's not the way it is. Both got to the same award. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Because obviously we're not doing the way God does things. And the reason is this. It's pretty simple, but it's very profound. It's the heart of this parable. The one that got 2 talents, how hard did he have to work to make 2 more? He had to work as hard as he could. The guy that took 5 talents, how hard did he have to work to get 5 more? As hard as he could. See, God measures not results, but he measures what we do with what he's given us. And once we realize that, we have to say, okay, what has God given me? Am I maximizing the return that he has put on me? Am I giving back to the master everything I can, right? And if the answer is yes, you're prepared to hear, well done, my good and faithful son. If the answer is no, you better rethink this thing, because you don't want to be this other guy, right? So I think it's a very interesting piece, and I won't go into the other two, but I think that one, of all the parables, I think that one is probably more important than the rest, and that because it's so much about this idea of the importance of work and how God looks at it very differently than the way our current culture looks at it.
Yes, and your discussion there actually touched on, I think, most of the social unrest we have. People have different visions about how that parable should be and how we should handle it in our society today, and how we should look at these things. So it's just a great parable.
And most of it would change what God wants to do with what they want to do.